Picture this. You have a purchase order document and the Microsoft Excel database with addresses. You just save these files in a SharePoint site and you just hit run. And even before you can take your first sip of coffee, Microsoft Copilot Studio with a dedicated agent creates a control document from these inputs and replaces hours of copy-paste with one single click. In the next few minutes, I would like to show you how you can build up a flow like this. In this video, you will see how you can create a new topic in Copilot Studio, how you can attach a SharePoint site as a knowledge source to your Copilot Studio agent, when to use and how to use the generative answers and the new prompt action, how you can store data in a JSON variable, and also how you can attach an agent flow into the Copilot Studio and how you can create the contract document with the help of this agent flow from a contract template document docx file. So let's dive deep into it and let's see how you can build up this flow. In the very beginning, we need to talk about some basic structural points that we need to determine. The first one is the trigger. In many cases, the Copilot Studio agent can have different type of triggers. For example, when an email arrives, then the agent is running, or when a file is changed, when a file is modified in a SharePoint site. In this case, we will just simply say that it's a manual flow and we will click button and the flow should run. The database, we already talked about that. This will be the SharePoint site where we will store our files, and the Copilot Studio agent will attach and reach these files on the SharePoint library. The automation will be done with the Microsoft Copilot Studio in this case. The inputs we will have is the purchase order document, which is a Microsoft Word file, the Excel database with addresses, which is a Microsoft Excel file, and the contract template document with placeholders for the input data, which is also Microsoft Word files. These three files will be stored in the same SharePoint folder. Let's look at them. I have created a SharePoint site for this purpose, and in the shared documents folder, I have these three files we talked about. The purchase order Microsoft Word document, which looks like this. It's a simple purchase order with a date, a PU number, a vendor name, a customer number, and purchase order item lines, and the payment terms. I have then the Microsoft Excel database with the addresses to a specified client. A specified address is belonging, and this is the purpose of this file. The agent should grab the data, the information from this file, and attach it to the specified client. And we have the contract template, which is a small example contract like this, with placeholders for the effective date, provider name, client name, and so on. We will work with this contract template in this case. The output of the flow will be a composed contract, and we will store it as contract.docx in the same folder as where the other files are stored. We could create separate folders for the input-outputs as we wish. In this case, just to simplify the process, we will use the same SharePoint folder for both purposes. The workflow we need to follow in this case. The first step is to prepare the Word file. That means that we need to add and place content control fields for the variables that we want to search for, want to look for the data that should be replaced to these variables. And with the usage of these variables, the final document will be created. For this, I have downloaded the contract template file to my desktop, and I'm opening it in the desktop version of Microsoft Word. Here I have my contract template file that I'm opening. What I have already done in this file, I have copied a content control field to this, which you can create with the usage of the developer tab, but not in the macOS version of Microsoft Word. The target of this content control field is to create variables within the Microsoft Word file, and these variables will be recognized by our agent flow, and we can manage data inputs with the help of these. What I'm simply doing, that I'm replacing these placeholders. I'm having the text with such content control field quickly, and I'm naming them accordingly. Now that I have replaced all the fields with the content control, all the placeholders with the content control field, I'm saving this file and replacing the existing file in the SharePoint folder with this new one. That means I'm deleting the file and I'm taking this new file and placing it here in the same folder, and quickly also checking whether I'm having correctly the content control fields. And they are there. Okay, we have this step done. Let's move forward with the process. Step number 2, we need to set the logic for the AI. That means that we need to define the prompts in order to find the data and the information needed for the variables. The effective date is basically the date in the purchase order document. The provider name is the provider name in this same document, the client name in the document, and now the client address is basically the address of the client from the address is Microsoft Excel file. That means that basing on the client name, the AI should search for the client address from the Excel database. We also have the service description. I had the prompt to prepare a short description from the services listed in the purchase order document from this table that we talked about in the very beginning. The total amount of the services, the payment terms, and the purchase order number, these can be found all in the purchase order document. We will use the generative answers action in the Microsoft Copilot Studio in this dedicated agent within a topic in order to search for data in the knowledge base. And as a knowledge base, we will set up the SharePoint site where we have stored already our input data. So let's dive into the Microsoft Copilot Studio, where I have already created an agent. It's an agent without anything, any tools, any triggers, no knowledge attached until now. Only the generative AI orchestration is turned off. What we need to do in the very beginning is that we need to attach the SharePoint site as a knowledge. We are adding a knowledge, selecting the SharePoint, and we're just simply copying the URL of the shared documents folder of this SharePoint site here. And we are adding it. In this case, you can have different folders, also subfolders within the shared documents folder. You can also select which folder you want to add. It is interesting because in the generative answers action, you can select which knowledge source should be used for what purpose. And there, if you have folders with different type of files in these folders, you can differentiate between the knowledge sources that should be used in what case. So now I have the shared documents folder attached as a knowledge. Then I'm getting into the topics. I'm creating a new topic from blank. I will name it as contract, simply, for example. What I do in the very beginning, I have turned off the generative orchestration. That means that I need to add something, a character that will trigger this topic within the flow. And I added just a dot. If I'm hitting the dot, adding the dot in the test chat box here, then this topic will be triggered. That's the purpose of this. After that, I'm adding the advanced action generative answers. I already created a prompt, which I'm adding as a formula and a string. In this prompt, I just listed in one paragraph all these conditions we have seen in the presentation. It starts with, please gather the data following this instruction and give us a response the variable name and their values as a list. And I have, for example, the effective date, which is the date in the purchase order docx file, and so on. And I have all variables listed here. So this is the prompt for this generative answers action. And then I need to edit the data sources. I'm turning on the knowledge source, which is the shared document folders. If you have separate folders as knowledges, here you can select which action should consider which document folder. Web search is turned off, and also classic data should be turned off. I want the AI to look only for data that is in the documents, in the knowledge. In the advanced tab, I say please send a message and save the response in a variable. And this variable I'm naming just a generative answer. Let's check whether it's done. Perfect. Generative answer, and there's a string as a text. This variable will be saved. Let's save this until now and let's test it quickly. I advise you to test as fast as you can, as many times as you can, and step by step in order to find the errors and the anomalies. Meanwhile, during the process, and as fast as it's possible. As I said, I'm just hitting the dot, enter, and this topic should be triggered. And you see that's already triggered, and searching for the answers in that prompt. And as you see, it's looking for the datas in the different files. It has two resources, sources in the background, the purchase order document and the addresses Excel database. And where the client address needs to be defined, it uses the source number 2, which is the Excel database. And if you see the client name is Contoso Limited, in the purchase order, I have Contoso Limited. And in the addresses database, Microsoft Redmond, USA, this is the address that is belonging to this company. These are all example datas only for this purpose. So it looks good. It looks good that all the data should be correct. Purchase order number 2025-0001. Purchase order number is the same. So let's move forward to the next step. The next step, we are using the new prompt action in order to create a JSON variable from all these input datas. And the purpose of the JSON variable is that afterwards I can use the structured output variables in order to have the different inputs, the effective date, provider name, and so on, as separate variables that I can use later on to replace the placeholders in the contract template doc file. What I'm doing now is I'm adding a new prompt. I can give a name, JSON, save, for example, and I already created such a simple prompt for this. Please use the values of the variables in the following input in a JSON file. And sorry, what I need to do, first I'm copying this output from the generative answers action. That will be my example input here in the new prompt. Business store. I'm doing now is that I'm adding a text input, example data is the output of the generative answers action. And here I can add the same sentence I created. Values, perfect. I'm using the GPT-4o model. I want a JSON output. Let's test this. It looks very good. And in order to have the same kind of structure of the output later on, I'm just saying here that please use the following variable parameters in the JSON output. And I'm adding this output here as an example. The effective date and the provider name, the client name, client address, service description, total amount, payment terms, PO number. Like this. And here everywhere I'm setting 3 dots. That value should come here. Perfect. Let's test it once again. It looks good. Let's save that. We are also storing this response as a variable. This will be a record type of variable, not a string. The input of this prompt is the generative answer output, and I'm storing it in a new variable, JSON variable, for example, the name. And if I want to test whether it is stored correctly, I can just simply send the message. And in this message, I'm saying that I need the structured output from the JSON variable. In this case, the client name will be the structured output. I'm saving this and I'm rerunning the test to see whether the information are stored correctly in this JSON variable, and I can get the structured output from that. Let's do it. So I'm adding a dot once again. Generative answers action is running, collecting the datas. Perfect. Then the new prompt action is running, and the message is sent with the client name controls eliminate. It looks good. Let's move forward with the process. Step number 5, you need to use a new agent flow action to create the contract.docx Word file with the variables where the placeholders will be replaced with the data stored in the variables. That means that I'm getting back to the Copilot Studio. I'm adding a tool, a new agent flow. And now I'm directed to the agents flow screen and here to the designer view, and I can start creating this agent flow. What is very important is I need to say that what parameters, what variables are taken from the Microsoft Copilot Studio, and with these variables, the agents flow can work with. It can store them as variables, replace things with that. So let's move with this. I say that when an agent calls the flow, then the parameters that are coming are the followings that we had previously. The effective date, first of all, Then we have the provider name. Then we have the client name, and so on. I'm just quickly filling up the parameters and variables coming from the Copilot Studio. So here we are. I have all 8 variables given. I'm just saving this as a draft, and I can start building the next action steps in the flow. I'm just adding an action. Word template I'm searching for. We need to populate this Microsoft Word template file that we already stored. And it is here. It's the premium feature, basically. And works in the following way. We need to choose the place where the file is stored. This is the SharePoint site in this case. And then we will replace the variables. I'm searching for the SharePoint site. Within this SharePoint site, I'm searching for the documents folder, and there I need to find the contract template file. After that, the variables will be loaded, showing 0 of 8. Now I want 8 of 8 to be shown. Then I can say that within this Word file, the provider name is a dynamic content, and it's coming from the Microsoft Copilot Studio as a provider name. And with this method, as insert dynamic content, I can fill up all the variables needed. Perfect. I have replaced the dynamic content to all 8 fields. Now I can save the draft again. What I need to do now is that I need to create the contract.docx file and store it in the same SharePoint folder. I'm adding an action, create file. I'm searching for, and within the SharePoint paragraph, create file. I'm adding the location where the file should be stored. Share documents, file name, contract, docx. And the file content is a dynamic content and it's coming from the popular Microsoft Word template action, the Microsoft Word document. And that's it. Basically, with this flow, I'm now replacing the variables that are stored in the Microsoft Word contract template file with the variables coming from Microsoft Copilot Studio, which was determined by the AI agent from the input data stored in the SharePoint library. What I need to do now is to publish this flow. And I'm going back to the agent. And I need to dive into the settings also. But before that, here the input parameters for this agent flow are listed, and I can save now the structured output variables, what is belonging to the different parameters here. The effective date is basically the structured output effective date from the JSON variable. I have the provider name, the client name, and so on. I'm filling up these fields here. I'm just checking quickly whether I have chosen the correct variables to each field. And it looks good. I'm saving the flow. After that, let's go to the settings, connection settings. And here we see that this agent flow, untitled, is the name. In this case is not connected. We want to connect this. So Microsoft Copilot Studio, submit, connected now. In this case, the flow should run correctly. We can run our first test now. In the SharePoint folder, only the contract template, addresses, and the purchase order is stored. No contract document at the moment. We are running the flow in the same way. First, the generative answers action is triggered, looking for the data in the input documents. Now we have the new prompt, and finally the agent flow is running. If we go now to the SharePoint folder and refreshing the site, the control document is stored. We are opening it. We can simply see that there are no more placeholders for the variables, but the data are replaced that we searched for. The service description from the table view on the purchase order document, we ask for a description, software development services and maintenance and support that was created with our prompt. You have the total amount, the payment terms, the purchase order number. So basically, it looks good. We have the document that we can use later on, download it, and use it as a contract. So this was it, how we can build up this flow in order to create this contract document from the input data stored in a SharePoint library and using Microsoft Copilot Studio and agent flow. My purpose in the future to create more videos like this, where I'm explaining real life business cases, how it's possible to solve the Microsoft Copilot Studio. I'm asking you if you are interested to follow me on LinkedIn, follow me here on YouTube as well. I'm trying to serve with real life valuable content. And if you already have in mind what type of other business cases you would like to see, that how we can manage this in Copilot Studio. And if you already have ideas what kind of business cases you would like to see, how it's possible to solve with Microsoft Copilot Studio, leave a message in the comments and let's work them out.